June 2018, and I was looking at my emails and messages, and it was pretty much about a year ago from now. So talk to us, share with us where things were at, what was happening for you this time last year.
My relationship with my husband was in crisis. We had been together at that stage for 17, 18 years, and I was unaware of certain conditions in my marriage and in my relationship, which were considered by others as not normal, but to me was a normal state. And as I began to get more aware that those types of behaviours are not what loving relationships are like, I had to make a decision. And the decision was a very difficult one, but one that meant a big shift in my relationship and potentially an end to my marriage.
So how had life been? You're saying you married a long time by most people's definitions. Can you see the pattern of when things started to maybe take that turn? I'm sure many people have got to a position where everything was going okay, and then at some point something shifted, and then for many years things kind of just started going quiet. Or do you know what period of time?
I grew up in a house with domestic violence and domestic abuse. So probably the most persistent state was domestic abuse. My dad had post-traumatic stress disorder. And when I got married the first time, I married someone who was the complete opposite of my father. It was almost like I was escaping. That marriage didn't work because I didn't respect that version of a man. This is all his unconscious beliefs around how a relationship should work. Very good person, wonderful. I was a terrible partner for him. So that marriage lasted 6 years, and then when I met my second husband, current husband, I felt like I had come home. Everything seemed very, okay, this is normal. What I didn't realise is that normal was a low level of abuse and struggle and an unhealthy relationship in terms of how I related to a husband or a man or a father figure, and how I operated as a woman, as a child, as a needy person within that relationship. So did it change? No. There came a point where there was an awareness that, this is not what a healthy relationship looks like, or acts like, or behaves, or feels even. And up until that point, I wouldn't say blissfully unaware. I had been conditioned to believe that that was normal. And when I recognized that that wasn't normal and there was another option, I suddenly felt that it was time to make a choice for me, for him, and whatever it meant to us.
I'm sure some people might be thinking, wow, you're sharing a lot. Is he okay with you sharing these sorts of details?
Yes, we've talked about it a lot. He did a lot of work. When it came to the time where I just made the decision that I can't be with him like this, like he's not a bad person, but his behaviours were not beneficial to him or me or to us. And I couldn't put myself through that anymore, and I decided to stand up for myself, for my needs and for what was important to me. And I loved him, and I also made it clear to him that there was no longer a requirement for him to have to live with that. I couldn't help him anymore. He needed to go and find help outside of us. And that he did an enormous amount of work with a private coach who helped him to face a lot of inner demons and struggles that he'd been avoiding, because we'd created a normal environment for those bad behaviours to be okay.
And so what was that point? I think a lot of people who might be feeling something's not quite right in their relationship, and it's maybe coming to that crisis or crunch time. What do you think was the moment of realization that this isn't normal, or this is not the way I want to have my marriage going forward?
It was a creeping realization and lots of indications from other people, holding the mirror up to me in my marriage. Some of them were subtle suggestions and some of them were quite blatant. One came from a woman that was a counsellor for men who've perpetrated domestic violence, and she counselled them, and she was living in my house at the time and would say to me, yes, this isn't normal. But she would only say that when I went to her and said, I'm struggling with, why don't I get treated a certain way? Why is this so difficult to be joyful in a marriage? Should it be this hard? And clearly something within me was searching for someone to confirm that actually something's wrong. And a few other people in my life at the time also were saying, you seem so happy on the outside, but you're actually really sad underneath. And I was like, really? I am? That's how you see me? And they were spending a lot of time around my private life, so I couldn't keep hiding it. You can hide it on Facebook, you can hide it on social media, you can hide it on stage in front of 1,000 people, but when people are looking at your private life and they care about you, they see it and you can't hide it. And it got to the point where my intuition was saying, okay, I'm getting enough indication from outside of me and the mirror's being held up. I can't avoid the mirror. I have to look in it. And when I look in it, I have to own it, and then I have to make a decision.
So why did you come to me? We were already friends. How did I support you and explain it? You know, there was a separation, but there was also a crossover between that friendship and, I guess, coaching.
I knew I could trust you. That was the first thing. I knew I could trust you with my heart and with my inner thoughts, and to help me get objectivity. Because when you're in your own stuff, you can't necessarily come up with the answers for yourself. You can't see all the potential solutions and outcomes. Certainly, oftentimes not the positive ones when you're in crisis. And you helped to give me that objectivity and say, there are many ways you can see this. And you helped explore options and choices, you know, possible short and long-term outcomes of those choices. And when I'd made a choice, you also helped me feel confident that I could move in that direction and that I was safe, and you were creating space for me, and that if I really got stuck, that you would be there, and you were.
And if I may share a little, there was a lot of confusion. There was lots of questioning and doubting of yourself and the choices and your future. I think you used the word chaotic mind. I think it'd be nice to share that that's normal, and that it did stop. It was a period of time that actually was necessary to help you work through all the possibilities and variances. Any messages for anybody else who might be struggling in this way?
Don't be afraid of the chaos. Oftentimes we stay in the current status quo because it's safe, but it's not healthy and it's not what you deserve. It's just comfortable, and the unknown can terrify you. But when you have great support and when you have skilled, educated support to guide you through the chaos and to make you feel like this is normal and it will pass and you're okay, and there is a pathway and many pathways from chaos into clarity and calm, it's worth it. And on the other side, we're 1 year down the track. My husband and I have never been happier. You know, it's awesome. We have a different level of communication and connection. It was a beautiful catalyst, actually. And if I had not made that decision to go through that period of chaos, he would still be kept in a pattern of his own self-abuse, because I created a safe environment for those behaviours to continue. So I wasn't doing him a favour, I wasn't doing me a favour, or anyone that's around us. And if I can give you one message, is trust, listen to your intuition, know that it will pass, get great support, and go for it. It's worth it, you're worth it, your relationship's worth it.
Did you think back then that you would be where you are now?
I think I got to the point where I was like, I am detached from the outcome. I would like it to be a certain way, I can imagine it, but I was detached from the outcome. I knew that I needed to go through the process, and whatever was going to be on the other side was for everyone's benefit, and particularly my benefit.
We can't control the other person. He was wonderful and went and got some help himself, and was able to come back with different perspectives in that sense. And you likewise were getting some help and able to mutually come together with new ways of seeing each other, but also how to each raise your bar of individuals
When you do have great support, like you gave me, and you know that this is for the greater good, even though the current state is awful and the process you have to go through is not comfortable. And a lot of it is facing your own demons. I had a lot of different stuff come up. I had little girl insecurities coming up and father issues coming up for me. And it was actually good that we were apart for a while, myself and my husband. It gave me space as well to let all these different layers peel off, and you guided me through that as well. So not only did you help me in the time of crisis, but also in the time of delayering and letting go of the stuff I've been holding on to, which kept the pattern continuing.
Yeah, one thing I like to work on with my clients is redefining who you are, what your sense of identity is. Once you've let go of all the crap and the baggage and the mush, what's left? Who am I now? And more importantly, where do I want to be? What do I want to be as a wife, as an individual, whatever the different hats we wear? How am I going to be going forward? What's the absolute truest version of me? And that's where I think you've landed.
And it was a case of, I know I need to go through this process. I need to lighten up. Whoever I am with, whether I am alone, I'm going to be okay. If I'm partnered with somebody else, I'm going to be okay. If my husband and I get back together, I'm going to be okay. And the process of working with you gave me that confidence and assurance that I'm okay, and this is okay, and it's going to be okay. And you'll get through the dark times. You'll come out stronger if you work with someone who is skilled, you trust, who's there for you to guide you through those dark times. You will get to the light times, and it will be brighter than you could possibly have imagined.
So give us just a rough time frame, would you think, in that year? What have been the stages for you?
Oh, wow. From crisis to clarity and then calm. I would have said it was a really good 6 months.
You were in crisis for how long would you suggest?
I would say at least 4 weeks, and that was also coincided with the time that he and I were separated, but I needed a lot of advice. How do I navigate through this really dark and confusing, chaotic time? Then there was clarity around that, and then there was kind of a process of things were settled. That underlying distrust, is this going to last?
Yeah.
And also other people were telling me this isn't going to last.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I really want it to last, but I'm not going to be attached to it. It's a process and it's a journey. So 3 or 4 weeks of crisis, then a settling period where things are clear, and then I would say another 2-3 months before there's that calm and that trust that, okay, this is good.
And when would you say, apart from the healing work you did in that first month, where other parties were involved as well with that, where do you think the critical support is if somebody's thinking about bringing on that external versus, we all have support networks, but that external, unbiased, non-judgmental perspective, how long do you think that's required for? Piece of string, I'm sure, but what did you need?
I would say you need somebody for 6 months.
Wow.
I would say it without a doubt. I mean, because there are definite stages, and you're still wobbly, you're still learning, you're still discovering yourself, you're renegotiating your relationship with yourself, with the other partner, with the environment around you, your own personal identity. And you will go through waves. You obviously need intense support during the critical crisis time, and that means, phone calls at midnight.
I love you, it's worth it.
So yeah, there's that intense one-on-one in constant support, and then it eases off. So I really think it's 6 months. You are more accessible to work on the deeper layers of you. So if there is a course that takes you for 6 months and then 12 months, so you can continue to evolve and learn and grow and nourish you and rebuild, then the crisis and the chaos is absolutely worth it.
Okay, I'm now this new version. How do I respark new stuff in me? And that's a different set of work. And that also can shift. It's like, oh, I'm going to follow this path, I'm going to follow that path. And it's been wonderful watching, and I thank you for inviting me into what was a very vulnerable spot. And it's kind of why I do what I do. It's such a privilege to be around such difficult turmoil, and thank you for sharing today.
You create a safe space for people to fall apart a little and to be truly vulnerable and And there is absolutely that respect for the person's journey. There was no judgment. There was no rushing me. There was, she's going to fall apart. I'm here. I'll hold your bits together while you do that. And I know 100% that what I shared with you stays with you. And that's invaluable.
Well, thank you. It takes a lot of courage. And we waited to come through where you needed to land in your own time. So thank you for sharing. And
It's a pleasure.
I hope some people who might be feeling some unsettlement within themselves or might be going through it, just understand you're not alone. There are other people who struggle, and many, many divorces take place. Hundreds and thousands take place every year, and people do get through them. And I hope that you have support around you, and I wish you all the best in your journeys. Thank you for yours.
You're welcome. And I'm going to add there that it's much worse to stay with somebody that you're unhappy with. Unhappy with yourself, unhappy with the relationship. You deserve a really vibrantly joyful, connected, nourished relationship, and you can have it. You can totally have it. So reach out to Mel.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time.
Your pleasure.